Thor is the main character of Infinity War. And it's pretty clear to see why.
In the very first scene, half of all remaining Asgardians are already massacred by Thanos, including the misunderstood hero Loki, Thor's brother and only remaining family member, who, in a brave attempt to kill the Mad Titan, is choked to death and tossed aside. The rage inside of Thor festers and tames into a passionate desire to murder Thanos. This desire is not just to save the world, but to avenge his people, his best friend, and his brother. Throughout the movie, his guilt haunts him. He knows that it wasn't his fault, but he feels like it's his fault, and his only redemption, in his head at least, is to murder Thanos. At the end of the movie, not even the full power of the Infinity Stones can stop the newly forged Stormbreaker hurling through the sky. This moment is exactly why Thor fails. When he strikes Thanos in his chest, he revels in it. He tortures the Mad Titan, just as he had been tortured. He doesn't kill him quickly and easily, which would have been the smart thing to do. And that's why
Peter Quill is a tragic character, and my personal pick for the true main character of Infinity War.
Like a chisel on wood, the tragedies in Peter Quill's life turned him into the man he is. Unlike Thor, one of the supporting characters, Quill's intro to Infinity War is much calmer. Most of his introductory scenes are to do with exposition for Thanos and his relationship to Gamora. Midway through the movie, he's faced with the most difficult decision of his life. Gamora said if she were ever captured by Thanos, Quill needs to kill her. She doesn't say why, but it's to protect Thanos from using her to collect one of the Infinity Stones. Face to face with Thanos, he holds the gun to Gamora's head, ready to kill her like she promised. In one final act of love, he pulls the trigger. But Thanos was just testing him. Quill committed to killing Gamora to save the universe. He put the universe before himself, and it was quite telling of his character. When Thanos actually does kill Gamora, he also puts the universe first. He understands the path ahead of him and what it will take, but he couldn't imagine killing the only thing he held dear and true to himself.
What did it cost?
Everything.
Quill and Thanos both committed to killing a loved one, the same loved one, in attempts to save the universe, so they act as parallels. One thing that sets them apart is their ability to control their emotion. Thanos loses everything and remains headstrong. When Quill finds out Thanos killed Gamora, he loses his mind and attacks the sedated Thanos, just before the Avengers take off the gauntlet. But how could you blame him? He already struggled with the guilt of coming face to face with almost killing his lover, only to find out she died in favor of Thanos winning. Thanos wakes up because of this barrage and attacks the Avengers, eventually winning the Time Stone. If Quill killed Gamora, the universe may have been saved, but because Thanos killed Gamora, Quill caused a domino effect and enabled Thanos to kill half the population. These parallels are unmatched and I find overlooked by the community, and it's really clear to see that
Tony Stark is the main character of Infinity War. I mean, he's the fan favorite. His arc transcends Infinity War and goes into Endgame. He's definitely the main character.
How can you sit there and eat pizza?
Tony Stark spends the whole movie trying to find himself again. He wishes to build a family with his wife, and his dynamic with Peter Parker reflects a father-son type of dynamic. Tony's relation to Thanos isn't as obvious as Thor or Quill. It requires context from a few previous films. Tony was traumatized by the attacks of New York orchestrated by Thanos in the first Avengers movie and created Ultron, an AI to prevent what happened in New York from ever happening again, but his anticipation nearly caused the death of humanity. With Thanos, Tony can finally put a name and a face to a lot of the troubles in his life and pour much of his hatred into the mission to take down Thanos. When the two fight each other, Tony's fighting effort only returns a drop of blood, which is symbolic to Tony's journey relating to Thanos. The Battle of New York resulted in Tony trying desperately to create measures so it wouldn't ever happen again, but it backfired on himself. All of his efforts barely affected Thanos, and the only effort that nearly took Thanos down was ruined by Quill's emotion. In the end, Thanos wins against Tony. The only reason Tony lives to breathe another day is because Doctor Strange bribed Thanos with the Time Stone, since it was, quote, the only way. Someone he viewed as a son turns to dust, and all he can do is wipe his hand off and look into the stormy skies of a planet far from his home. His arc transcends beyond the movie and into Endgame, where he spends the whole movie regrouping himself in the Avengers and gives the ultimate sacrifice in the end. In finding himself, Tony loses himself, literally. And that's why...
Thanos is the main character.
Dread it, run from it, destiny arrives all the same.
And I mean it truly. Not only does he have the most amount of screen time, not only is he arguably one of the most iconic despite it being one of his first main appearances, but he is the thing that combines everyone's narrative together.
Up until Infinity War, Marvel was not known for having the most captivating villains. With a few exceptions, most of their movies had the heroes themselves be more interesting, and the villain merely as a goal to defeat, an objective. But Thanos is much more than an objective. All of the characters go through an arc on their own, but all of their arcs revolve around Thanos. To look at the previous examples, Thor, Quill, and Tony represent much of the emotional core and represent the tragedy that comes with Thanos' path. A few other characters worth mentioning are Nebula, the neglected daughter of Thanos, the Scarlet Witch, who, like Quill, tried to save the universe by killing a loved one, only for Thanos to undo it, or even Doctor Strange, who struggles with investing in the future by giving up on everything in the present. A supreme trust in the timeline and the decisions that everyone will make in the future. Everyone serves a purpose, and Thanos is the glue that combines them all together. His motivations spark an ethical question. Does the price of something always justify the outcome? Thanos' plan has created interesting outcomes on smaller scales. He wiped out half the planet on Gamora's home planet, and in doing so, the planet flourishes like a paradise. He wants to take matters into his own hands and massacre not just half the population on one planet, but in the entire universe, and according to him, this would help the issue of sustainability. The universe is finite, its resources finite, as he says. With all things considered, it's always fun looking at his plan and discussing the ethical implications. It's miraculous how an Infinity War's narrative can combine everything together so easily, and Thanos is the key to it all. He's the binding agent that ties all the characters together, so with all things considered, that obviously makes Thanos the main character, right? The thing is, there is no main character in Infinity War. There's actually no main character in any of the Avengers movies. There are many disadvantages when working in a pre-existing cinematic universe, like contradicting certain details in other movies or taking the collective canon and timeline into account. But one of the advantages is that, if done right and taking the timeline and canon into account, you don't really need to introduce the characters. Even if you've only watched Iron Man 1 or Guardians of the Galaxy or Thor, you'll know enough about the characters to watch this film. The characters have entire movies for themselves to introduce them, so Infinity War really doesn't need to waste any time. And no time it wastes. From the start of the movie to the end, Infinity War absolutely flies. So many different characters are included in this massive, sprawling movie. Something interesting that I believe Infinity War does the best out of all the Avengers movies is how they introduce the characters within the movie itself. Avengers Infinity War does not need a main character. It's obvious the movie relies on you to know who these characters are, but I do believe if someone watched this movie without having watched any other Marvel movies, which is very possible considering it's one of the most popular Marvel movies, they would be able to follow the narrative just fine. And I think that's a testament to how exposition should be handled in movies. Writing is a very tricky and unique art, and requires balance.
Perfectly balanced, as all things should be.
The balance between action and explanation and simple natural dialogue and silence, it is all a delicate thing and balanced very well in Infinity War. It's pretty funny, and maybe ironic, that a movie with a villain who has such a staunch belief in balance in the universe actually contains a pretty good example of how to balance the plot in more ways than one.
Thank you for watching this Peak Stasis video. If you enjoyed this video, consider checking out my other content, and if you enjoyed that, consider subscribing. Thank you all, and I'll see you in the next Peak Stasis video.